I'm trying to come up with a bit of chat to start the thing, and my brain is blank.
Oh.
At least your beard is starting to come back.
That's only because I haven't shaved yet tonight. This will all be gone by tomorrow.
Yes, it's messy, but it exists.
I enjoy wearing a bit of stubble personally.
We are on Beard Watch 2025.
There's just continuity there from our episodes.
Yes, that'll be very exciting to our listeners who don't watch on the video. Okay, so we'll do the thing. Hi, friends.
Howdy, y'all.
Hello.
And welcome to Muppet Sex and Trauma. I'm Sara Ezzat. I make the Fat Culture Critic videos on YouTube.
I'm Josh Gosdin. I'm a big old nerd.
I'm Oddnon. I co-write the horror comedy comic Horror, and I live stream on Twitch under the same name.
Hi,
welcome back, Oddnon.
Hey! It's good to be back.
We once again had an episode with a bit of body horror, and I thought, well, we'll get Oddnon back to that.
It's definitely it was an interesting one. I like how it just kind of starts out. I may be getting ahead of myself, but they just the trouble seems to find them. I mean, that's the nature of the shows, but you know.
Yeah, it certainly does. Especially now they are in dun 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 tormented space.
Which so far doesn't seem all that tormenting.
Except that they haven't found water on any other planets.
Yeah, but that's just like space.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not going to defend the tormented space thing.
Good, because neither am I.
It's a choice.
When they brought it, I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, we did a whole thing last episode.
Yeah, I was dissatisfied with the choice as well.
It's the steak crawl of, we're in the weird space. Now we're in the weird
space.
A Prefect Murder was written by Mark Saraceni and directed by Jeff Bennett. In a stunning turn of events, Moya's crew have once again found themselves in the middle of a tense planetary political situation. It's time for leadership transition time as the old prefect and discount Christopher Lee-looking dude Phallic is stepping down in favor of the clan chief Garshar. We are again on a planet of people who have a problem with Chiana, as they attempt to banish her for seducing the local boys, though it's actually Sikozu who's having a bit of a dalliance with Zerbat, Garshar's son. Dargo and John are attempting to cool tensions when Aaron opens fire in the town square, killing Garshar and several others, before wandering off. The townsfolk are understandably pissed off, especially as several other clan leaders have been mysteriously killed lately. I wonder if this has anything to do with Sauron-looking old prefect dude and his suspiciously creepy henchman, Elat. Well, the townsfolk want Aaron's blood. So Zerbat goes looking for her with assistance from Sikozu and John. She shows herself to John and to the local priest Peruse, and they help her reconstruct her muddled memory of the event. It seems someone or something else was controlling her. It all started with a bug bite, though Peruse says there are no bugs on this planet, which is strange as John was just bitten by one. And now he's losing himself and getting all muddled with thoughts of shooting Peruse. Luckily, a bit of wood smoke dispels the effect, and when Zerbat is filled in, everyone comes to the logical conclusion that it is probably Elat. Meanwhile, Elat and Phallic have kidnapped Chiana and talk in front of her about their evil plan. Elat has been making mind-controlling murder bugs to make people murder all the clan leaders so Phallic can stay in power. Aaron and John race to the Prefect Tower to save Chiana while getting stung by multiple murder bugs, which makes them turn their guns on one another. Still, they do manage to reach the Prefect Palace and find Chiana blind from using her power. Things get tense as the murder bug influenced John and Aaron struggle to not shoot one another. Luckily, Peruse sweeps in to save the day by taking out Elat with a chainsaw to the head. Zerbat confronts Phallic with his scheming actions, but rather than face consequences, Flat decides to defenestrate himself out of a very high window and off a cliff. Peace is restored and the crew prepare to leave, but first they take a moment to mourn the dead and John comforts Aaron. So, yeah. Thoughts?
His name was Phallic? Like...
Phallic.
But like... Phallic?
Phalak? They're... Yeah. It does sound... the way I ended up pronouncing it sounds like that, but I don't know.
You can call him anything you want, just don't call him late for dinner.
No kidding, man. That's a hard name.
Yeah.
Oddnon, how'd you like the episode?
I thought it was fun. I think it's really rare in especially modern shows where everything has to be either two-parters, or it feels like everything has to be two-parters or it has to be done in a single episode. But I think this drew a really great start to finish. I popped in, I was able to grasp everything and just really enjoy kind of I don't know if I would exactly call it intrigue, but unraveling the plot as the episode went along. It didn't feel too much. It didn't feel too little. It was incredibly entertaining. And I love how Chiana just gets kicked off of every planet ever all the time. Whether she did anything or not, it seems like.
Yeah, and in this instance, it seems like a little bit of not, because...
That's kind of what I gathered.
Sikozu was actually the one banging her way around.
And there's a very much a misogyny kind of laced all throughout this planet, it seems.
No kidding.
Just a little of will the other women behave themselves?
Yeah. And calling her a freckneck and a whore, and I was like, good, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Guys.
Slut shaming the planet.
No kidding. When it was actually Sikozu that the show actually spent time showing being actually in a sexual position.
And boy, did they spend time on it.
Listen, I wasn't going to, go there, but since you went there, well done. That scene was well executed.
The director knew what his priorities were for that.
You're damn right he did.
Priorities and limits to what can be shown on television.
This show always pushes the boundaries, but that's
inches, centimeters, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And hats off to Rayleigh Hill for A, doing it, and B, doing it so well.
In the time before intimacy coordinators.
Yeah, it's just a director chain smoking with some other guy holding a boom mic over his boobs. I'm assuming.
with an illuminated wall clock they bought with their cable cash.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, it was very breasted boobily.
But kudos to also not just making it titillating. They actually gave that relationship some screen time, some character development. Man had Sikozu actually considering it for a second. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, where else does she have to go?
I mean, sure, but also I did not peg her for the settling down type.
True, and she has been very Scorpius centered. So
exactly, yeah. I was thinking about that the whole time that final scene between him and her was playing.
I'm not a big fan of this one. There are aspects that I like of it. I like the presentation of PTSD. I think that is well presented as sort of the triggered, sort of altered state thing. But Sikozu does not feel like girlish crush on the local prince. That doesn't feel in character for her. what she does out of it does, but I'm like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
And the timey-wimey of it all is an interesting conceit, but it's very confusing.
It was not well executed.
And usually we get everything, we're usually in John's point of view. And that usually also gives us the opportunity that usually we get an explanation of what the hell is going on, because John will be like, what the hell's going on? Very useful thing about the fish out of water and just the nature of John. But we don't have that. And so we're just kind of left to kind of figure out and piece together what the fuck is going on. And what the fuck is going on is a pretty basic sort of political thriller. And I kind of think what they did is they had the image of Aaron and John pointing guns at each other and worked their way backwards to make a plot that would make that happen.
I liked some of the style of this episode a lot. I should say I liked the flash. I was not a fan of a lot of the substance. But I feel like if you're going to do a Rashomon, how did we get here, multiple perspectives kind of a thing, you've got to stick with it and not just do it in Act 1 only. I feel like if you're going to do in medias res, where you're going to drop us in the middle of Gianna's already being expelled, Dargo already has a relationship with this guy, you actually have to like back up and explain it at some point. You can't just do in medias res as a substitute for setup and explaining what's going on.
I did find myself kind of rewinding a little bit in the beginning, just a few minutes here, a few minutes there. And I have my two monitors and everything, so I tend to watch things on the second, but I was like actively watching it, and I was like, there were times where I was a little confused, to the point where like I pulled up the wiki to check out the episode before and the episode after, just to make sure I didn't miss something like in the last couple. So I would definitely agree with that.
I also didn't catch anybody's names. Like, I don't have a clue. I did not have a clue until also I read up afterwards what the son's name was, what the dad's name was, what the priest's name. Like, they just kept saying, "Your father would be proud. I'm the ruler now." Like, who are you? Can we get name tags?
Yeah, I got a couple of them on the second watch, but then mostly I was going from the wiki when I wrote them in the thing. So that's why I'm like, I don't know if that's how they're pronounced, but I did my best.
It gives me. Sorry, go ahead.
No, after you, Oddnon, after you.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I don't know if anybody remembers. What was that show, Defiance? That came out a few years ago. Probably a decade or more now. But it was a sci-fi show. That I guess the plot doesn't matter, but the setup was very much like, what if it was like Star Trek, except no stars and only Trek? Like, it was like a barren planet that was re-terraformed Earth. So I guess if you don't know it, then it won't make any sense. But it gave me a lot of those vibes, and I could easily see how something like this, if you were to talk to the people that made it, or would like cite it as an inspiration.
Oh, the setting is fabulous, and what they actually, it's an area that had been badly burned in a big fire. So that's what gives it that look. It's like it's a space they found, and it makes for a great look. And most of the set deck and stuff that they did on this is very good. I'm not sure about most of the guys' hair. It looks good on the prefect, the big white one, the fancy white hair, but on the others, it's just kind of like, I don't know. It looks a bit too much like it looks a bit too much like cultural appropriation.
Or bad crochet jobs.
That too.
But yeah, I also was getting rolled up locks in a way that like none of you guys should be wearing locks.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Sara, though. I love, and that's part of what I mean when I say I love the flash of this episode. It was beautifully shot, wonderful scene, great production design. That the juxtaposition in the climax of John and Aaron on the ground pointing their guns at each other versus John and Aaron on the ground surrounded by their friends and family. Like that was lovely. And that was some great visual storytelling. It was great, lovely, great visual storytelling, just sort of floating in a very shallow script.
Yeah, and as always, we know that they were, laying track while the train is running, and this is the first script from this particular writer for Farscape.
Is it?
He'd written a few other for a few other shows in Australia before, some Warner Brothers stuff, like the Tasmanian Devil series, but not a lot of experience. And new to Farscape. There's a couple other scripts this season. So and I also know they were getting quite a bit of input from the suits at this point of trying to be more accessible. So they were they had a few strikes against them, and they were doing their best, and this is not their best, but
it's not, but also
we have had worse.
It's no better. Jeremiah Crichton.
Yeah, we've done the Rashomon before and done it well.
Yeah, we've done In Medias Res and done it well. Yeah, I feel like that's actually part of why stuff like this stands out to me so much on Farscape. Whenever Farscape doesn't meet the bar that it has previously set, because I really do enjoy how creative this show can be, and I really do enjoy how subversive it can be and surprising it can be. And when it's none of those things, then it's kind of a letdown.
As I said, I do enjoy the sort of giving us a kind of experience of PTSD with Aaron having these, losing control and not being able to, clearly remember what happened and everything. That, given we talk about the trauma journey, I think that is a piece of this episode that works. And I think perhaps given that it's kind of, we're in a bit of an odd time with John doing the drugs.
I was just going to bring that
up. In fact, the reason why we didn't do a lot of talking about the John's drug stuff last episode is I figured this would be the better episode to talk about how John is an idiot doing drugs.
Well, the thing that kind of strikes me about it is, I mean, statistically speaking, it's likely, but I don't know, so I don't purport to know anything about anyone that wrote it. But somebody who wrote that script either did fantastic research or has a loved one that has, been in that cycle before, because there are a lot of little subtleties of that are very spot on. When she says, take it as long as you need, and he goes, well, I don't need it. It just takes the edge off. It's like the famous last words when you talk to, not that it's, you do it once and you're like, it's just, that tends to be how these things metastasize. No shame to anybody, but it's just one of those things that if you talk to addicts, you're bound to find more than half probably that are like, yeah, at the time that's what I said too, I think it was a really good, if not bare bones, I think it was a really good representation of that, introducing that sort of topic, as it had a couple episodes earlier. So
far I'm having trouble with John's little pocket drugs, because I'm having trouble pinning down how it's affecting him in terms of characterization. They're doing it. You're absolutely right on. They are doing a really good job with the, I guess, trappings of drugs. but I'm having a hard time seeing the difference in Ben Browder's performance, like before and after he takes a snort.
Mm.
And so for me, it's like, what's happening right now? You know,
right?
Because like he takes a snort when he's on the stairway to heaven outside of the castle, but then we don't really see that makes any difference in how he would have reacted in the following scene that he's in after Aaron shoots everybody up.
Mm-hmm.
Like he still tries to defend her and he still goes after her just like he would have.
I don't. Did they say? Yeah, I think she says that it at some point in this episode or previous one. I think she says that it just dulls pain or something like that.
Yeah, that's what she said when she introduced the drugs, was for 30 microns or whatever it is, like you feel nothing.
Yeah. So I would like to see a little bit, like I'm kind of with you. I haven't really sensed anything or picked up anything beyond what I said earlier that would indicate that it was more important, I guess, but maybe we just haven't made it there yet. Maybe this is like a lead up. I don't know.
That's possible. Yeah. Like we could be building to something, but for right now, at the very least, I'm not really seeing the effect.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil anything, but I think that's a valid criticism, at least at this point. We'll see what we see in the future.
It's a hard one to like launch off of after we bring it up. It's kind of like screeches everything to a halt. But I mean,
sorry, I said my criticism is valid.
This is a it's a delicate thing to be able to discuss an ongoing plot element, which is not so far being explained particularly well.
Meanwhile, my girl Chiana deserves better.
Yep.
Yeah.
She doesn't deserve to get chased off of a planet just for what sounds like consensual encounters, and B doesn't deserve to get face slammed into a table, like, and then just sort of swatted around and I can help, guys. No, Chiana, stay down, kind of a thing. Like, what? My girl deserves better. She's had better. And probably the best Chiana moment was at the very end of the episode when she, with the priest, and he was like, "Whoa!" And then her and Sikozu had a little like nice kind of a girls' moment as they scampered off together.
Yeah,
that was the best Chiana of the episode.
Yeah, and like, why does she use her sight?
To see the front side of his face, I guess, but like,
yeah, I'm like,
that seems like overclocking.
Why are you doing this?
Right? Yeah.
there is. It's not in the last episode we had it so she could figure out how the doohickey worked.
Yeah, and in this episode, I feel like it's not a crazy logical leap to watch somebody turn away from you and then see insects emerge from around the front of their head in this universe. Like, you don't need to use your like precognitive like space warping sight.
Yeah, it's not like there was I mean, how was she supposed to know there wasn't going to be any kind of like,
I mean, I guess
button input thingamy. I don't know.
And I think that's part of it, is that we're left sort of like scratching our heads about that.
Like, you blinded yourself when you were in a vulnerable position. You knew it would blind you.
Yeah.
Why? Is it just so that Peruse at the end can be like, why did you do that to yourself?
That's kind of how it felt. Like what you said earlier about the episode starting with the image of John and Aaron pointing guns at each other and working backwards. It definitely feels like the episode had began with destinations and then had to figure out the journey.
Mm. Which isn't necessarily the worst way to write a thing. It's an option if you have a thing you want to write towards. It's just that sometimes that ends up working against you if you don't realize that if you don't do enough of the work, or sometimes you should just kill your darlings and go where the thing actually leads.
Yeah, like don't do season 9 of How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, well, I like most of season 9. It's just like, don't have that ending.
Every time I watch How I Met Your Mother, I always stop at like season 7, episode 15. I don't know why. There's no logical reason. I'm just like, oh yeah, everything else happens after this. And and as many conversation for another time and not on this podcast, but for everything else about that show, I think it's pretty all right, but I don't know what to say about the rest of it.
Well, I have a lot of criticisms of How I Met Your Mother, but I actually think it makes sense that the thing, like that spoiler alert, that the mother is in fact dead. I think that makes sense because of the way that he's been talking about her the whole time. It doesn't seem like you're talking about somebody who's in your life. It seems like it's rose-colored glasses. That part makes sense, but the way that at the end it just kind of like they dispose of her so they can reunite him and Aaron, or him and Robin. I'm muddling shows, so they can reunite him and Robin when they've obviously no longer make sense. Yeah,
that.
Yeah, and the other sort of example of another show doing this, because I need to fill up time.
We sort of have talked about the episode by now, haven't we?
I guess we're writing How I Met Your Leviathan.
But the other one I was thinking of that starts they started with the closing image they wanted, and then wrote towards that. Is season 4 of Angel.
Oh, don't get me started.
Where they or was it the end of season 3 where they had this image of Cordelia ascending to heaven and him falling to the oceans, the end of season 3, which set up the mess of the next season, because then because they wrote towards this idea, and then they're kind of like, well, what do we write now?
Yeah, man. Don't get me started.
That is one of those shows when it's good, it's very, very good, and then there are the other times when it's abysmal.
Wait, kids, let me tell you about how horrible it is to be displaced in a time that you never made and weren't made for.
All right, Bob Saget.
We're doing How I Met Your Angel Leviathan.
Just mash them all together.
It's just snowballing. How I Met Your Mother had to torpedo Barney and Robin's character development in order to make Ted and Robin work, and I will foam at the mouth if you let me talk about Angel season 3 and season 4 too long.
Yeah, I think How I Met Your Mother hasn't aged particularly well, because Ted is just despicable.
No worse. Yeah,
but I love Marshall and Lily.
Ted is Ross Geller on steroids.
Anyway,
Spoilers
we're talking about
Friends now, I guess.
We were
fourth show into this.
Shows that took bad turns.
So, yes, it was a beautiful visual storytelling. John and Aaron on the floor, guns pointed at each other, in their sort of post-insect bite compulsion visions, juxtaposed against John and Aaron on the floor, surrounded by their chosen family who are comforting them and taking care of them, and who are the reasons that they don't wind up killing each other. Like that was lovely. John being like, "Hit me harder, you sissy." That was hilarious. And also, Dargo, your tongue can literally sting people into unconsciousness. Why were you punching him?
Like, I think it's Dargo. He was asking you to tongue him.
No, literally, like when he said "knock me out" and then Dargo hit him, I started losing my shit. I was just laughing.
I don't think there are many circumstances in which John asks Dargo to tongue him, outside of whatever fanfic people are writing.
Post your links in the. Actually, don't post your links in the comments.
Yeah, just don't do that, because then I'm gonna have to click on them and.
Yeah. So this was an episode.
Yeah, it's an episode, and I do enjoy the confrontation. Like, of course, it's it's Claudia and Ben. They're always amazing, and it's intense, and the whole like they talked about the coin costs.
Did I miss that?
No, you did. You're absolutely right, Sara. And John said it real quick at the end, Oddnon. He said, I feel like that coin toss turned out badly. And she said, me too.
Mm. Wasn't it the first episode I was on? Or was it the second one?
It wasn't the first one, but it was the end of the last season.
The first one was Eat Me, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Which I rewatched that again like a week ago, but refer to that episode of the podcast for my thoughts.
Speaking of phrases to take out of context.
That show was full of them. I'll tell you what I needed more of, Sara, because I missed the PTSD angle that you're talking about, and I think it's because I was actually craving more. Aaron was raised to be a fascistic child soldier.
Mm-hmm.
And her entire journey, this series, has been unlearning and deprogramming all of that. So for her to be bug mind controlled into assassinating somebody, and let alone shooting her friend in the process, should have been a meaty opportunity for us as the audience to experience with her a reminder and a recontextualization of the horror that she went through with the Peacekeepers. That feels like a huge missed opportunity for me. And like when she's kneeling by the graves at the end and John walks up to her, I was like leaning into the TV and it cuts to black and I was like, damn it.
Yeah. And I feel
I needed
like
more.
I watched this episode a few times now, and then finally on this rewatch, I was because I've always been like, this is so underwhelming, but I was paying attention to the work Claudia was doing, and that's when I got, I see a lot of PTSD angles in this. I see she's playing a lot of the trauma and the emotion, especially her emotions around the whole thing with the kid. It's just, it's all shown and it's all subtext, and we needed some text.
We did. We needed her. Yeah, God, we needed some text, because like to juxtapose that against her grief over John putting her out on the balcony of a shady apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was also mostly subtext, but it was much more well executed subtext.
Yeah, I think because we had the flashbacks and the memories and things. We were, that was very deep in her point of view, but they showed us enough for us to see what was going on with her. Whereas this, like, it's very much like there's very few lines, very few things. I was thinking about like the thing where she was constantly watching the kid and her anxiety about thinking that she'd hit the kid, and then when she thinks she's shot the kid, like, and then we know that she's pregnant and everything. And then I was thinking about the child we saw when in the episode where the on Scorpy's base before they blew it up, and like her whole like. So I was thinking about all of that because I watched this enough times.
Right,
and that I'm trying to find something of worth in this episode.
This is like your fifth time through the show.
So I'm like looking really closely at Claudia's acting to try and pull some gun. And I think she is drawing on all of that, but it's just way too subtle.
Agreed.
Like it's just not in the writing.
This is like your 5th time through the show, right?
I haven't counted.
So you're a super fan of Farscape, and you needed to do like some deep dive panhandling to find these nuggets amidst all this sand. To me, and I am absolutely guilty of that. I will headcanon and overread a show. We were just talking about Angel. I will headcanon and overread a show so that I can let myself enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that we have to do that means that there was a mark that was missed somewhere.
Yeah, because I was trying to find something to talk about in this episode. Other than, this is really quite meh. So, like, and I think that there is some stuff there in the direction and in the acting that somebody needed to spend some more time on in the writing.
The thing that I'll say about the episode is that it kept feeling like they were setting up like a bigger payoff to like a bunch of smaller plot points. And then every time it just felt like it sort of like would build up to it. And then you'd have like a little bit of if it was like a graph, it would like build up to it, be a flat line, and then it would build up a little more and a flat line, and then it's over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was also remarking that as I was watching the episode, I kept waiting for. I felt like I was waiting for the rest of the episode or the rest of the plot to show up, because it definitely just fizzled.
What you were saying about subtext is like everybody, will talk about how something is ham-fisted, but having too much subtext doesn't just make something inaccessible if you're not clued into it, but by the very nature of it as a writing device, there has to be text
to be sub. Yeah,
exactly.
We have subtext searching for a text.
It's like when you're like 14 and writing poetry, like all you know is metaphor and like making things sound good. Maybe the second part, not in my case, but like you set up all these metaphors and everything, but none of them go anywhere. That's kind of what it felt like. It was like, I'm definitely watching something that's like, I'm enjoying it. It's fun. I'm having a good time. I don't know what the hell's happening. At various points, like I said earlier, like rewinding and stuff, I kept being like, wait. I must have missed something. But
I mean, there is an arc, but it's his body as he arcs his way out of the window and that appears to be the arc of this episode.
I will say this was a rare case where one of the guest stars was actually almost compelling enough to carry the plot on his own, which may again be a strike against the plot. But the son did really good. The actor did really good with the material that he was given, and I really liked the son's torn between what was and what is, like torn between vengeance for his father's death and carrying on his father's legacy. That was good shit.
See, I found him kind of annoying.
I tried.
I'm kind of over the angsty boy characters.
He's no Joffy.
He's not, he's not Joffy, but I just don't have much space for the whole, Zuko-ish kind of angsty young men. I'm too old for that shit. The character I felt, the actor I felt was doing a lot of work for their size of their role was the guy playing Phallic, the sort of Christopher Lee from Wish. I mean, it was very arch in a way that felt outsized of the role. But it's kind of like there are kind of hints of something that could have been, his very arch villain exits to defenestrate himself. For anyone who doesn't know, that means throw out window. I just think it's a fun word.
It is. It sounds like it's like not that.
I know. there's a couple. I think it's Prague, or there's a couple of middle age like conspiracies things that are referred to as the defenestration of something, because they their political maneuver was tossing opponents out windows.
I mean, it works.
Depends how high up the window is.
I feel like even if it's a ground floor window, what you lack in deadly conclusion gets made up for by utter humiliation.
So yes, I was just saying, Oddnon, I'm sorry that if we're kind of poo-pooing an episode that you rather liked.
Yeah, I actually was looking forward to hearing some of your thoughts, Oddnon, because I mean we've Sara and I think have beat this horse well to death.
Well, I think one of the things that I quite enjoy about this is a lot of people will like sort of point a finger if you're being critical about something and being like, oh, you're poo-pooing it for everybody. You're just, and I don't know. I kind of like it. In that I get to, as because I'm new to this ride, right? And so it's really actually quite helpful to be able to contextualize it with somebody else who's new to it, and somebody who's been through it a number of times, has helped, because I've tried to watch Farscape a number of times, and it was never that I didn't like it, but I'd get a few episodes in and be like, nah. And after talking to Sara about it, and then we got the first episode that I was on from us talking about it, really turned me it turned me onto it in a way that I didn't see before, and that was from hearing everyone talk about it, right? So I mean, I think it's great, Yeah, I liked it. But it doesn't hurt my opinion of it to hear everyone else's. And in fact, when I get there, hopefully soon, but I don't know. I haven't really been watching shows regardless. But when I get there, I can now take all of this information and like apply it to my next watch through. And I think that's really cool. I think it gives a lot of life to contextualize it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad we haven't soured you on at least on it, or at least this episode. I know that I've commented before, and any number of episodes I have not held back on ways that I found them lacking or wanting or dissatisfying. Just like I hope I've not held back on the episodes that absolutely blew my mind and that I loved. And yeah, I think for me, this episode really is several ideas that Farscape usually does really well that they just didn't hit this time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this. Yeah, it just kind of meh.
yeah. Which is like almost worse than Lava as a mini splintered thing or Jeremiah Crichton.
At least we had things to talk about in those ones.
There's this. I don't think this is what it's called, but it's basically like the Room effect. Like the film The Room is like, if things are like particularly terrible or particularly great, you can kind of coalesce to pull something out of it to enjoy. But when something feels otherwise, like just kind of middle of the road, what do you say about that? Other than, it was fine.
Yeah.
So, are we done talking about this episode?
Does anybody have anything about this episode? No, I don't think anybody does.
I think we covered it. I think even again, I stand by my thing. This watch around is I quite enjoyed it. I think I just kind of really like the world building in general, and I was really kind of taken with kind of like the scene direction and the actual sets.
Yeah.
And so that was enough to pull me in. But I think we've really kind of, I mean, I guess I'm not really the one to say, but I feel like it's pretty well covered.
Okay, well, so do you want to know the title of the next episode?
Yes, please.
The next episode is one called Coup by Clam.
Coup by what?
Clam.
Like?
Yes.
All right.
Do you want to give any thoughts on what might be coming up?
I mean, it sounds like a real pearl of an episode.
Well, okay, so this episode comes with it. I don't want to give spoilers.
Okay.
But for the folks at home, I do need to warn about some upcoming bad tropes that could be triggering. So editing Sara is going to give you a list. So heads up that Coup by Clam involves transmisogyny, transphobia, misogyny, no homo, anti-Semitism, and, well, kind of everything. So heads up on that.
Okay.
And Josh, you're just going to have to be surprised.
I look forward to being surprised by terrible tropes.
just don't worry. Just today, yeah, you'll figure it out. It's fine.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. Like I'll be watching it. Like, oh,
yeah, yeah. I think you will.
Oh, it's this shit. Okay, all right.
And we'll be joined by that one by Zilla.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
It is what it is. And those of you at home will have heard my list of troubling tropes. But yeah, I don't think there's anything that's going to be triggering to you in an emotional. Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about some comments from our listeners.
Give us the stuff. Yes.
From Nug 1903 on I Shrink Therefore I Am. On the subject of just going with it, the helium farts from Rigel make only slightly more sense than shrinking, yet very few people ever question the farts. The reason they make no sense is that helium is one of the least reactive elements, which makes it basically useless for biology, and thus you can't use it as a catalyst or reaction input. Unless, of course, he is somehow doing biological nuclear fusion, because then the helium makes perfect sense as byproducts.
I love everything about that comment.
So do I.
Like, thank you.
Nerd emoji alert. I'm just kidding.
You win a special gold star, Nug 1903.
Yes, you really do.
That's a fun observation, actually.
That was truly perfect. We need like a whole biology lecture PowerPoint presentation.
So Rigel is doing
helium parts.
Rigel's doing what was it, bionuclear fusion, or I forgot the term.
Biological nuclear fusion.
He does have more than one stomach.
Yeah.
It truly is a setting of terrible beauty.
Mm-hmm.
I need a full PowerPoint presentation. Once again, and I Shrink Therefore I Am from Molly Mockery, regular commentator. If I were picking an episode to show a newbie, I might go with Durka Returns. Unfortunately, that's not how it went with my best friend, who knew how much I loved Farscape. She decided to watch on her own to watch an episode. Decided on her own to watch an episode that came on TV one day. It was Taking the Stone. I convinced her this was not representative of the usual quality of the show, and she decided to try again the next time she saw Farscape was on. Taking the Stone again.
Oh.
She tried a third time, and you'll never guess what episode.
Oh no!
Well, Molly,
that is some kind of weird curse.
You know, if your friend watched Taking the Stone and was willing to try again, then that's probably a good sign.
Yeah.
Because as we just discussed, there are plenty worse episodes than Taking the Stone.
Yeah. It's not a great one, but yeah, not yeah. From Chick Flick Guru, again on Shrink Therefore I Am. As someone who has resisted ever trying to explain Farscape to a specific friend, I may just send her this video. Thanks for your service.
Glad we could help.
I was getting on a bus as you were explaining that John was twinned and Erin came back pregnant, and the look on the driver's face as I giggled has yet again reminded me that this show can only be experienced and never fully explained.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Also, Josh, you look like you've been de-aged. Looking forward to the return of the beard, should you and your wife wish it so. I'm not sure that your wishes are a factor in this in any way.
No, you're absolutely right. My wife 100% wishes it so the beard will come back. Don't worry. It's just a question of when.
Okay, on John Quixote from Avlin Sock. I always think of the X-Files episodes first-person shooter when I think of video game episodes, co-written by William Gibson. I don't remember that one. That X-Files episode, but sounds like a good one. Comment on Discord from T. Just listen to the John Quixote. Great job. I remember not liking this episode originally and was kind of dreading it on my rewatch, but now I watched it again, it's good. And there's more substance to it than what I first observed on my first watch. Overall, I'm finding season 4 more fun on rewatch than I remembered. That is good to hear.
Yeah. John Quixote is a fun one.
And also from Hello Starboy, listening to the new episode, and I have a few comments. Sara, if you like shrinking stories, I'm interested in knowing if you've seen the early classic Doctor Who Planet of Giants, which I have not. Hearing other Sara mention liking pathetic men made me go, "Oh boy, wait until she gets to Stark." As someone who has listened to quite a few Farscape podcasts, it was very funny to hear Josh say, "Thank God it's Friday again," starts in media res, because the Frailcast has conditioned me to understand Farscape episodes as starting in Ray's House of Media.
I love that.
I've never heard that before, but I like it. So those are our listener comments.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate you.
I still think the gold star goes to the first one.
Yeah, 100%. Like you did good science, and you did good literary analysis as well.
Indeed, yes. That's always fun. So, yeah. Oddnon, what are you working on these days? Anything
Well, we just finished up with Adam Fellows' Late Night with Angela, episode 2. That came out last month. There may or may not be more things in the pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
But excited to see whatever comes out of that. And really just been kind of taking a break lately, honestly. So, excuse me, if anybody wants to find me, my username is the same everywhere. So you can find me on Twitch, on Blue Sky. I think I still have a Twitter, but I haven't done anything with it in probably 8 months. But yeah, I mean, I'm easy to find.
Yeah, it makes sense to be taking a break in the current climate. The burnout is bad.
Yeah.
With a lot of folks.
Mm-hmm.
I was streaming like 5 days a week. And yeah, it was just too much. And then, yeah, I saw myself go into burnout, and I was like, I'm going to hit the pause button here for a little bit, but I'll be back. So
good self-awareness.
Mm-hmm. Josh, where can folks find you?
Join me over on Instagram at Josh Gosdin. It's a fun time over there. I actually, when I first got my Instagram, I was doing a lot of cooking, and I recently posted a cooking reel for the first time in a while, so it felt good.
You aren't going to give us a little journey as to where you can be found this time?
Not this time.
Inspired?
I would, except that I was bitten by a bug right before we started recording. And I'm feeling this strange compulsion not to.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about the murder bugs.
It was
a thing.
It happened.
I think just explaining what they were was like that. Like we did it.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
Such an exciting episode of the podcast.
What's that phrase? Bugs today, gone tomorrow. I don't know if that's it, but what am I? The pot calling the kettle late for dinner?
I'm Sara Ezzat. I make the Fact Culture Critic videos on YouTube, although I haven't made one in a while, but I need to get on that. And I can also be found on Blue Sky and in our Discord and in our Patreon. So there are links to that as all in our doobly-doo. And we will be back with our friend Zilla to talk about Kubai Clan.
Yay!
Lamb. I misspoke there. We'll be back to talk about Kubai Clan. And then we will soon be, after that, we will be launching into a fun multi-part group that we won't be watching. We'll be watching them each individually and discussing them each individually, but they're sort of a part of an arc, and we've got some guests lined up for the arc that's coming up that should be interesting.
Yay!
Excellent.
So looking forward to that. And thank you for joining us. As always, thank you, Oddnon, for coming.
Thanks for having me. It's always a good time.
Glad you're here, Oddnon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And everybody take care out there, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Unless, I mean, you could defenestrate yourself the way that Elphaba does, which is rather you need a flying broomstick for that,
and a whole lot of empowerment.
Yeah, it's like it's dramatic enough to, but this dude wasn't flying anyway. He wasn't defying gravity.
Does it specifically mean that like you were pushed, or because you could say if one defenestrated themselves, but is the implication that you purposely were thrown out, or that you?
I'm not 100% sure if one can defenestrate oneself. I just think it's kind of wonderful.
No, it's a wonderful turn of phrase, but like.
You seem to have wandered off the point a bit.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, we're making content.
I'm a word
Is that
guy.
what we're doing?
We're mining for content.
We're panhandling for content.
Oh well, you do what you do. It's another day in the content mines.
You do
right.
What you do.
Please, can I have some more content? You want more content? That's my Oliver Twist impression.
That was good. No, I like that. That was good.
Yes.
Sorry, you've got to release us.
What, the Oliver Twist impression? Of course, definitely. And our defenestration discussion.
I'm about to defenestrate out of this podcast.
Now we won't be doing any of that.
Okay, I think that's enough. Unless anyone has anything.
No one has actually anything.